Morning, everyone. It's 7 o'clock in the UK. Welcome wherever you're watching us. Around the world this morning, the last group matches for the Euros. We expected drama and surprises, but not quite like this, with both the England and Scotland teams on COVID alert. And now a call from one Prime Minister to pull the final from Wembley because of rising cases. Fresh questions, too, over travel quarantine rules this morning. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, joins us very shortly indeed. In addition to that...
now, when she should have been celebrating her 60th birthday, we consider what this very special woman achieved.
Diana at 60, the new documentary featuring the princess's friends and those who worked with her, tries to paint a picture of what her life might have been. We're joined by the director and...
OK, Jenson, we need to retire.
Moving at a fast pace, we're joined by the former Formula One world champion, Jenson Button, to find out why he wants to learn from the past. It's Tuesday, the 22nd of June. COVID at the Euros as two England players self-isolate. A call from Italy's PM to pull the final from Wembley because of rising cases in the UK. Neglected for decades, how working-class white children have been forgotten. Reef row, a call to put the Great Barrier Reef on a danger list, but Australia says no. The pressures of fame. We meet Andy Murray, who opens up about mental health and whether or not this will be his last Wimbledon in a broadcast exclusive.
Comments on your personality or how you might look or how you might talk and all of those things, like when you're 18, you're not prepared for that.
And it's looking fine for many areas today, slightly warmer than recently as well, but some areas will see rain. I'll have the details for you later.
Morning, everyone. A COVID alert at the Euro 2020 tournament and plenty of fresh questions over travel too in this morning's newspapers, and a report that people who've had 2 jabs may be set to benefit from quarantine-free travel. Lots to put to the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, who is on the programme very shortly indeed. But first, Italy's Prime Minister, Mario Draghi, wants the Euro 2020 final to be moved from Wembley to Rome because of Britain's rising COVID infections. Meanwhile, England and Scotland are having to rethink their squad selections for tonight's games. England's Ben Chilwell and Mason Mount are self-isolating after coming into contact with Scotland's Billy Gilmore, who tested positive for COVID-19 after the two countries met last Friday. Meanwhile, have any plans for a summer holiday abroad got gloomier? Well, yesterday the Prime Minister played down suggestions of widespread relaxation of restrictions on international travel, stressing it's going to be a difficult year for travel. First, let's get more on the COVID alert at the football. A blow despite England qualifying for the knockout phase of Euro 2020 without even kicking a ball today. Let's find out more about it. Our correspondent Shaman Freeman-Powell is outside Wembley Stadium for us. Hello to you. Good morning. COVID issues this morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes, it's very chaotic and both sides are going to have many questions that need answering for tonight's game. As you said, on Friday it was a huge game for both England and Scotland, and both of them are expecting to play tonight. But with Billy Gilmore testing positive, it's thrown up many questions. So he was the man of the match for Scotland on Friday, and in the midst of celebrations he was seen celebrating with fellow Chelsea teammates Ben Chilwell and Mason Mount. And it seems that after those celebrations, that's actually what caused those two players to self-isolate, as there are questions as to why other players haven't been asked the same questions. And as you say, it does throw up some questions about these big tournaments generally and about whether or not they should be going ahead. And as you just mentioned, Italia's Prime Minister has recently come out calling for the games to be moved from Wembley over to Rome. And here's what he had to say.
Yes, I will try to stop the final being held in a country where infections are rising quickly. Thank you.
I wonder how that might go down, not only with England fans, but also the FA here and also other football organisations. They're not going to be pleased about the Italians saying, let us have the final, are they?
No, I think it could be expected for him to say that. There are obviously reasons why he would want happen to them.
OK, it's good to talk to you. It's a bit noisy there, isn't it? We'll let you go and get a cup of tea and we'll chat to you in the next hour. Thanks very much, Iman. Thanks a lot. Quick look at what's happening as far as the latest daily coronavirus data is concerned. This is how it's looking today. There have been 10,633 new coronavirus cases. 5 more deaths have been reported. That means the total number of people who've died within 28 days of a positive test now stands at 127,981. Another 163,750 people have received their first vaccination, and 109,000 and a bit have had their second vaccine. In total, more than 31 million people have received both doses of a COVID vaccine. That's nearly 60% of the adult population. Lots to ask then the Health Secretary when he joins us in just a few moments' time. We want to ask him about social care as well, of course, don't we? And in addition to that, what he thinks about the Euros. He's joining us now. Hello to you, Mr. Hancock. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. It's good to see you.
We aim at the building.
Hello. Hello, Mr. Hancock.
Hello.
Hello. Do you want to
Hello, how are you?
We're great. We're live on the telly just at the moment.
There we go.
Can you hear me OK? Yep. We're live on the telly, Mr. Hancock. It's Kay Burley talking to you. Confirmation of 2 jabs, and potentially that means that we can, straight off the amber list, we don't have to quarantine. When is that going to happen?
Well, this hasn't been clinically advised yet. We're working on it. And we're working on plans to essentially allow the vaccine to bring back some of the freedoms that have had to be restricted to keep people safe. I mean, after all, that's the whole purpose of the vaccination program. It's why it's so important that every adult goes out and gets the jab, and if you've had 1 jab, that you go and get 2, because that's where the full protection comes from.
OK, working on it. Does that mean potentially by August, so at least people might be able to have some semblance of a family foreign holiday this year?
Well, we'll get there when it's safe to do so. We want to do this right. We want to do this carefully and properly. But of course, we do want to get those freedoms back. That's the whole point of the vaccination program. So when I'm in a position to be able to say something more concrete, then we will do. But it is absolutely something we're working on. It's something I want to see.
Presently costing something like £600 million a day to the economy. So every day counts.
Well, yes, but the pandemic here at home has huge costs in terms of lives, in terms of the economy. And so protecting this country from what can happen, the variants we've seen around the world, that is a very, very important part of managing this pandemic. Now, thankfully, because of the vaccination program, we've been able to free up a huge number of the restrictions here at home. We're on track to deliver the step 4, the further openings, on the 19th of July, which is good. But we're also looking to see how we can replace the protections that are currently there with the restrictions, with protections that come from the vaccine, with respect to international travel as well. But it is more difficult freeing up international travel. We have one of the tightest border control systems in the world, and we have that because we want to protect this amazing progress we've made at home with the vaccination program.
OK, perhaps one option will be the new app that you want to talk to us about. Could that act as a vaccine passport?
Well, we can now, all of us, see our vaccine status, see your testing status on the NHS app. And we've seen this massive uptake of the NHS app. And there's 2. The one that you use to check into venues, 25 million people have downloaded that. A smaller number, 6 million people, have now downloaded the main NHS app, and on that you can show whether you've had the jabs. And it's important because we know other countries are going to say that they want proof that you've been vaccinated before you go. So when travel is opened up, we are going to make sure people have got that ability to prove it. So if you go into the App Store right now, Kay, you can download the NHS app. It connects up with your GP records. It means that you're more in control of your health data, which is which is important and one of the big learnings from the pandemic, one of the things that we're strengthening with the data strategy we're setting out today. But it will also mean that you can see your vaccination status and see your any tests you've done recently to be able to help prove that you haven't got coronavirus. So it's all part of using modern technology to help to manage this pandemic as well as possible.
Okay, yep, I do that, and I can see that I've had both vaccines. I've had that app for a long time. I'm seeing that as a vaccine passport for me to be able to prove to other nations, if I travel overseas, that I've had both my jabs and I'm 100% invincible. Talk to me about Dido Harding, if you would. She wants to run the National Health Service, and I believe that you are keen on her doing that. Just looking at her track record, it's not great, though, is it? Track and trace. Not fantastic, as my viewers will know. Her roles at Talk and Woolworths weren't ringing endorsements for her career. Why do you think she would be a good leader of the NHS?
Well, I'm absolutely not going to get into any individuals who put their name forward. We have an open competition for who is going to be the next chief executive of the NHS. It's an incredibly important job, running, one of the most important institutions in the country, probably the most loved. And so we're looking broadly, and we've invited applications from across the board for who can do that job. It's a tough job, and Sir Simon Stevens has done it very well over the past 8 years, but we need to make sure that the NHS has the right leader, and we need to make sure that the NHS looks forward. And the data strategy, for instance, we're publishing today from the NHS is all about how we can harness modern technology to make sure the care you receive is better, because anybody who's used the NHS will have had the experience of going in and having to give their information over and over again, and make sure that we can organise the NHS as well as possible using modern technology. So the NHS does need to look forward.
My question is about Dido Harding. Why is she a good candidate?
Well, as I said, we'll look at all of the candidates who put their names forward, and I haven't seen the shortlist. The whole process is being run by the NHS board, and we're being very thorough, and we've invited applications from right across the world.
Okay. Talk to me about social care. We heard from your predecessor, Jeremy Hunt, in the Daily Mail yesterday. He says it's a do-or-die moment, really. And we heard that from the Prime Minister 2 years ago on the doorstep of Number 10. You had a meeting planned with the Prime Minister and the Chancellor to talk about the social care crisis. Why has it been postponed?
Well, the Prime Minister has been absolutely clear that we're going to publish the plan for the future of social care this year. Our commitment is there in the manifesto to deliver on social care in this Parliament, and we deliver on our commitments, right? We were elected to get Brexit done, and we delivered on that. We said we'd protect the NHS through the pandemic, and we've delivered on that. We're currently delivering millions and millions and millions of vaccines every week. And we've committed to making sure every adult can get a jab. We've delivered on that, so we will deliver on social care. In terms of the ins and outs of the the internal processes, of course I'm not going to get into that. But what your viewers can rest assured is that we will deliver the plan for the reform of social care that, as you said in the question, is long overdue.
OK, we only have a limited amount of time. My question is, why was the meeting postponed?
Well, what I'm telling you, Kay, is I'm absolutely not going to get into diary management issues. What I'm going to tell you about is the commitments that we have to
Given
deliver.
how important it is, when's it been rescheduled for?
Well, you wouldn't possibly expect me to answer questions about private meetings, and I'm not going to. But what I am going to do is deliver the reform of social care that people want to see. Naturally, we had to delay this work because of the pandemic.
Why not? You said it's long overdue. Why are you not telling us when the meetings are going to be, when you're going to discuss with the Prime Minister and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, when something that was promised 2 years ago, a meeting has been postponed? You can't tell us when it's been rescheduled for. Meantime, something like, I think I'm right in saying, 18,000 pensioners a week are finding themselves in a position where they're being moved from hospital to social care, and they don't know whether they're going to lose their houses because the Prime Minister's not delivered on his promise of dealing with social care.
Well, I don't know where to start with the total rubbish in that question, Kay. Firstly, I'm absolutely not going to get into diary management. I talk to the Prime Minister every single day, and we're working very closely together on the delivery of this policy. But the second thing is, we absolutely were working on the plan before the pandemic struck, but you'll understand, and your viewers will undoubtedly understand, that when the pandemic struck, it was all hands on deck to protect lives and to get us out of this as fast as possible. And the vaccine is doing that, and the Prime Minister has committed to delivering this plan before the end of the year, and we're going to do that.
Hopefully, this isn't as rubbish a question then. Is the money there? Have you managed to have that conversation with the Chancellor?
Well, of course, the question in terms of social care is both in terms of how we can best make sure that people get the care that they need in the setting they need, whether that's in their own home with care coming into their own home, or, of course, in a care home, and in terms of how that's paid for and who pays for it. There are many injustices in the current system that we want to tackle, and that's one of the reasons this is such a complex piece of work, but it's also one of the reasons it's such an important piece of work, and we're absolutely determined to deliver on it, and we're going to deliver on it.
OK, let's try this one. The Royal Yacht set to cost £200 million. Should we have that, or should we have that money to pay for 8,000 extra nurses for a year?
Yeah, well, I'm obviously not the minister responsible for the Royal Yacht, but what I can tell you is I think it's a brilliant idea. And it's a brilliant idea because it's how we can help to sell Britain abroad. And you only need to do encourage a small amount of trade in order to pay for a yacht like this over and over again. And by taking the yacht, essentially displaying Britain in countries around the world, in harbours around the world, from, in New York to Singapore, you can sell what is great about this country and great to invest in this country. And we've got so much to sell. The middle part of the 21st century is a fantastic time for this country if we get this right. And I think that making the investment to be able to go and sell Britain around the world is money well spent, and I think it will repay itself over and over and over again. So although it's not my area, you can tell that I'm an enthusiast for this. And I think that it's long overdue, and I'm absolutely thrilled that we're making progress on delivering it, because I think it'll be great value for money in the narrow sense, but it's also very, very important that we sell Britain around the world. OK. Interestingly, Her Majesty is not a fan. So why don't you just call it a yacht? Well, I don't think you know, and I certainly don't know of those opinions. But what I do know is that this country has a huge amount of opportunity. We've got to get through this pandemic and get out of it, of course, and we've got to build back and learn the lessons from it. But in terms of trading with the whole world, with all the trade deals that we're striking at the moment, we've got a huge amount of opportunity, and we've got to make the most of it.
OK, I know you've got to go. Let me ask you very quickly before you do. The Italian Prime Minister wants to nab the Euro 2020 finals away from us because he says that we've got too many cases of COVID here in the UK. What would you say in response to him?
I think these Euros are going very well. The final's set to be at Wembley, and I was at Wembley on Friday night. It was great to hear the noise of the crowds again. And this is obviously something that Oliver Dowden, the Culture Secretary, is working closely with UEFA on. But I think we've got a great setup And I hope that either England or Scotland or Wales, or potentially two, are in the final. That would be absolutely brilliant. It's great to see Wales through. It's great to see last night England are through, and maybe I hope Scotland can get through as well. That would be brilliant if all three got to the last 16. That would be an amazing performance for the home nations.
A diplomat and a politician to the end. It's always good to talk to you, Mr. Hancock. Thank you for joining us this morning. Still to come on the programme for you at 7:30, the Shadow Home Secretary Nick Thomas-Symonds will be joining us as coronavirus cases continue to climb. 8:30, we'll hear from aviation consultant Robert Boyle about the need to help and free up the travel industry. And before that, I'm going to be speaking to F1 World Champion Jenson Button about his highlights of 100 years of motorsport. Meantime, latest borrowing figures are just in from the Office for National Statistics. This is what they are looking like. Helen Ann Smith has them for us. Hey, Helen Ann, tell us more.
Morning, Kay. Yes, we've got figures in for the month of May of what the government borrowed and what it owed. Of course, the context, a pandemic that's wrought havoc with the economy, millions and millions spent by the government propping it up via things like the furlough scheme. So in the month of May, net borrowing, what the government borrowed was £24.3 billion. Now, that was slightly down on what it was in April, slightly down on what it was in March, but nevertheless, still the second highest borrowing for the month of May on record, second only to May 2020, when, of course, the pandemic begun. Net debt, what the government essentially owes, that's been creeping up as well throughout the last 18 months. It's currently at 99.2% of GDP. So put another way, it's almost 100% of the total value of all products and services in the economy, what the government currently owes its net debt. It's worth saying as well that the financial year that we've just concluded in March, the figures for that have been ever so slightly revised in terms of the net borrowing, but nevertheless our borrowing in this country is still was in the last financial year at the highest levels seen since the Second World War. So these are really, really big numbers, and it all matters because the Chancellor of the Exchequer, under huge amounts of pressure to pay for not just the recovery, things like the education catch-up programme, we know the government were criticised for that, not giving enough, for health catch-up, but also for some of those big pledges and promises you were discussing there, Kay, with the Health Secretary, the yacht, social care, things like the pensions triple lock. The money for this all has to come from somewhere. The Tories want to be seen as the party that can balance the books, but these are still huge, huge numbers. Very difficult indeed.
Indeed so. And thanks for getting the memo about wearing emerald green this morning, Helen Ann. See you later. Thanks a lot. A report by MPs has described this systemic neglect of white working-class children, calling them the forgotten. The report attacks the use of the term white privilege, claiming it contributes to the failings of these children as they persistently underperform compared with those in other ethnic groups. It also accuses the Department for Education of failing to acknowledge the problem. Here's our Home editor, Jason Farrell.
At Outwood Academy in Barnsley, 42% of the predominantly white children come from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Watch your shoelace.
And educators here are unsurprised by the findings that the academic performance of white working-class children is low compared to poor children from other ethnicities.
We've seen great evidence, for example, that newcomers to the country, the optimism that they come with, can often see education as the route out of poverty. But for too many communities that are established, they don't see that same level of importance behind education.
Poor white children on free school meals do badly throughout primary into secondary school. And the impact on outcomes is dramatic. For example, 73% of Chinese pupils on free school meals get into higher education. With black African kids from lower incomes, it's 59%. And black Caribbean, it's half that at 32%. But with white children from the same low-income bracket, it's half again. Just 16% get into higher education. The report authors conclude that policies should be directed towards helping this group, and controversially also say the term white privilege shouldn't be used, as it contributes to what they call systemic neglect of white working-class children.
The concept of white privilege is entirely wrong-headed. It's wrong-headed because it implies collective guilt when it should be the individuals who are responsible for acts of racism. You're really saying to the single parent who might live in a small bedsit in a flat in my constituency of Harlow that she automatically is someone of white privilege. I mean, this is why this has got to be stopped.
But others argue that the issues facing ethnic groups shouldn't even be a factor in the question of how to lift the attainment of white school children.
It seems more like a culture war bomb than an actual desire to create betterment within our society. For example, white working class people are not an ethnic group. And throughout the whole report, it refers to white working class people as an ethnic group. They are an economically challenged section of an ethnic group, which is white people. And one of the problems that we have is that these debates are always predicated upon the fallacy, which is white working class people versus ethnic minorities.
See you tomorrow.
It all plays into the politics of race and left-behind communities. The government says it is levelling up, but also that as the largest group, white disadvantaged children benefit most from schemes such as the pupil premium. Jason Farrell, Sky News.
Other stories making news for you this morning on the programme. Las Vegas Raiders star Carl Nassib has become the first active NFL player to come out as gay. The 28-year-old announced the news in a short video posted on his Instagram page. He also said that he has donated $100,000 to the Trevor Project, which is a group that seeks to prevent suicide among the LGBTQ community.
I just want to take a quick moment to say that I'm gay. I've been meaning to do this for a while now, but I finally feel comfortable enough to get it off my chest. I really have the best life. I got the best family, friends, and job a guy could ask for. I'm a pretty private person, so I hope you guys know that I'm really not doing this for attention. I just think that representation and visibility are so important.
Good for you, young man. Now, there's a row brewing over Australia's Great Barrier Reef. The United Nations wants it added to a list of in danger World Heritage sites due to the impact of climate change. The Australian government says no.
The reef is an icon internationally, and we are here to fight for the reef, and we are here to challenge the decision when it comes up for final consideration in the World Heritage Committee in about the third week of July. This decision was made, as I said, without due process. It was made on the basis of a desktop review. It hasn't even used the latest data. We've got Australian Institute of Marine Science data coming out that's showing really strong work in the recovery from the bleaching events that have occurred.
Well, here's Sky News Australia political reporter Trudy McIntosh.
The Australian government believe that they have been singled out with this new report by UNESCO saying that the Great Barrier Reef's heritage status is now in danger. The reason behind this is they don't believe the process has been transparent. The Environment Minister says her officials behind the scenes were given no indication in recent days that there was about to be this change to the listing. Yes, it is a draft change at the moment. The final detail on this will be decided next month in China, but it is China that is one of the reasons behind this. Australia has been engaged in a diplomatic war of words with Beijing for quite some time now. Ministers in Australia not even able to get a phone call back from their Chinese counterpart. It's my understanding from behind the scenes the Australian government fears that this is potentially another form of retribution levelled against Australia as part of a campaign of coercion, that China is the chair of this UNESCO body. There is a fear within the Australian government about the growing influence that China has over the UNESCO body, and that potentially is seeping into these other environmental issues when it comes to the reef. It's certainly not a universal position, though, within Australia. The opposition here does not believe these two issues are linked.
I want to show you these pictures. HMS Queen Elizabeth, the pride of the British Navy, has been showing off its firepower in the Eastern Mediterranean. There you go. On its first ever deployment, its F-35 jets are involved in operations against remaining Islamic State fighters in Iraq. According to the naval commanders, they're also involved in a cat-and-mouse game with Russian jets in the area. The 65,000-ton carrier is supporting live military operations on the ground for the first time in more than 2 decades. Beautiful, isn't she? Let's find out what's happening as far as the weather is concerned. It was miserable yesterday. Naz, I got soaking wet through. What's happening today?
Bit wet this morning, Kay, but actually it is looking mostly fine and dry across many areas for today and feeling slightly warmer than recently in the sunshine too.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. It's looking mostly fine and dry across many parts of the UK and Ireland for today, with some good spells of sunshine and feeling slightly warmer than recent days as well. But, and there's always a but, there will be some rain around for northwestern areas later, and this morning it's a cloudy and wet start across many central and southern parts of England. Across these areas as well, it's less cold compared to elsewhere, where it's sunny and mainly dry, but it really is quite chilly in some spots across northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures drop down to minus 2.4 degrees Celsius with an air frost there, which is quite unusual for this time in June. Now, going into this afternoon, and the cloud will eventually thin and break as that rain eases away very slowly across southern parts of England. So eventually these areas will become dry and brighter, but it may stay quite cloudy and cool for the far southeast of England, parts of Kent, for example, for much of the afternoon. Elsewhere, sunny spells developing, feeling warm, but cloudy, wet and windy across the far northwest of Ireland and Scotland later.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
If you've only just joined us, you've missed the Health Secretary being a bit testy with me this morning already, and it's not even 7:30. Find out what he had to say in a short time. Coming up after the break, we are going to be chatting about the continuing fight against COVID, speaking to Labour's Shadow Home Secretary, Nick Thomas-Symonds. That's to come.
I'm Greg Milam, Sky's US correspondent here in Los Angeles. I've seen the dark side of America.
To the heart of the stories that shape our world. If there is a bigger explosion, this area would be in the danger zone.
These traffic jams snake for hours up and down this hillside.
We know that 800,000 people have been displaced.
I think experiencing the 2 million person march in Hong Kong, that was a moment.
Police have been firing tear gas and rubber bullets.
You see fires all around us here.
Siobhan Robbins, Sky News, Bangkok.
Hello, my name is Nadia Frontier.
My name is Ryan Matthews. I'm the Marine Assistant at Rotherham Research Station,
which is to the west of the West Antarctic Peninsula. So far I've been here for 5 months and it is an absolutely wonderful experience.
My name is Fatma Zilzila, the founder of Ecosaf from Kuwait, where we face many environmental problems related to waste pollution, deforestation and lack of information. We are collecting recyclables from houses, schools and businesses in order to recycle them. In exchange of your recyclables, you get a tree.
morning again. Health Secretary's been on the programme. He has told us that the government is working on plans to allow extra freedoms for those people who are double vaccinated. Boris Johnson said yesterday it was going to be a difficult year for travel, but Matt Hancock told me this morning that ministers are keen to reap the benefits of the vaccine rollout and give freedoms back to the public.
We'll get there when it's safe to do so. We want to do this right. We want to do this carefully and properly. But of course, we do want to get those freedoms back. That's the whole point of the vaccination programme. So when I'm in a position to be able to say something more concrete, then we will do. But it is absolutely something we're working on. It's something I want to see.
And joining us is the Shadow Home Secretary, Nick Thomas-Symonds. Hello to you. First time we've chatted in face-to-face. It's great of you to come in on the show this morning. Thank you. Just hearing there about the amber list, double vaccinated. Potentially, it means that you could travel if you can prove that you're double vaccinated. How does Labour feel about that?
Well, firstly, good morning, Kay, and great to be joining you.
Thank you.
Look, of course, we want to see international travel opened up when it is safe to do so. But my concern about this proposal is we are yet again going from one particular proposal to another. We lurch from one thing, then we lurch to another. What I've been asking for is a comprehensive plan from the government. I think at this moment, yes, have that growing green list. But I've been arguing for some time that the amber list has to, in effect, go into the red list, that you need to have that comprehensive hotel quarantine system to protect the gains of the British people over the past 12 months, but also to guard against variants from overseas, which is the big threat to our vaccine rollout.
So what benefits should there be? Obviously, health benefits for having 2 jabs, but what about the social benefits?
Yes, and we, of course, want to be clear that having the vaccination, having the 2 jabs is a really positive thing to getting our lives back to normal. And I can see how that could be part of a reopening of international travel. But what we have to see now is, firstly, let's protect the vaccine rollout. Let's get that comprehensive system in place. And let's have a proper strategy, not government ministers giving one idea, change their minds, going to another.
Now, you were probably on your way here, so you didn't maybe see the Health Secretary being very testy with me earlier on when I was asking him about social care and why the meeting has been cancelled between the Prime Minister and the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He said that was private and it was nothing to do with me or my viewers. What does Labour want to see as far as social care is concerned? When do they want to know what the plans will be for our elderly?
Frankly, we should already have known. Boris Johnson, when he became Prime Minister, when was it, July 2019, actually spoke about social care on the steps of 10 Downing Street. Now, social care is one of the great political challenges of my generation of politicians, if you like, how we are going to make sure that everyone has that dignity in retirement and has that care that they actually need. This should be an urgent priority for the government. It is everything to do with you and your viewers, and the government should be open about the meeting and need to bring forward plans as a matter of urgency.
2 years ago, when he made those promises on the doorstep of number 10, nobody saw the pandemic coming. Where's the money going to come from?
Well, look, it isn't a question of whether or not we can afford for everybody to have the care they need. It's a necessity that everybody has the care that they need. And it isn't as if this is a new challenge. Of course, there's been the pandemic and the different challenges that that has brought. But we've known that social care was an enormous challenge because of our ageing population, because of the positive thing of people living longer. That's been known for years and years. That promise was made by Boris Johnson on the steps of Downing Street, and he should deliver it.
I know you want to talk about Windrush, anniversary of Windrush. You feel that the government has failed the people of Windrush and many Barbadians as well. We're going to be speaking to some people a little bit later on about this very subject. What sort of support do you want to see?
I want to see the whole scheme handed over to an independent body. And I think that has to happen because the Home Office has comprehensively failed. So this scheme was set up back in 2019. Frankly, victims were traumatised in the first place. The scheme is re-traumatising them. I've spoken to victims. I know their complete lack of confidence in this scheme. In that time, only 687 people have been compensated. 21 people have died without actually receiving their compensation. And the actual offers have been appallingly low. No wonder the National Audit Office gave a damning report on this scheme last month. So the time has come to give it to an independent body so that people can get the justice they deserve.
How frustrating is it for you to be, when you be so passionate about your position and about politics and about injustice in the United Kingdom, knowing that it doesn't look as though anytime soon you guys are going to be in power, and Batley and Spen is not going your way either, which is the by-election next Thursday?
Well, first, you should never take voters for granted, and we will see what happens in Batley
Got
and
hammered
Spen.
last week, didn't you, in Cheshire?
But, well, look, I mean, there's a very particular set of circumstances in Cheshire and Amersham, HS2 planning and other issues, and it's not a seat that has in any sense got a history of Labour voting. But at the same time, obviously I wanted to have done better in Cheshire and Amersham. I want to do better all around the country. But I think it would be a huge mistake to make these assumptions about the results of elections, whether it's the Batley and Spen by-election, whether it's the next general election. I am passionate about changing the country. Keir Starmer's passionate about changing the country. We'll be putting that case to voters.
Are you going to win Batley and Spen?
I sincerely hope so. We got an excellent candidate. I never take voters for granted, and I think making predictions like that is to do that. But I know we got an excellent candidate up there in Kim Ledbetter, who's running a fantastic campaign. Looking forward to getting there to support her myself the next couple of weeks.
How are you feeling about a royal yacht?
Look, I think we really do seriously need to see whether this is affordable and is value for money. We've heard the Prime Minister talking about the idea of a royal yacht. We've then had, it appears, the Chancellor concerned about where the money's coming from. It now appears that the money may be coming from the Ministry of Defence, but that was a budget we already understood there was a black hole in. So I hope that we will actually have something that resembles a proposal that we can look at to see if this actually represents value for money.
And let's see if you agree with Matt Hancock on this one. The Prime Minister of Italy wants to take the Euro 2020 final offers. He doesn't think it should be at Wembley because of the rising cases of COVID in the UK.
Well, I don't agree with the Prime Minister of Italy. I would like to see the... obviously, I'd like to see the final of the Euros.
Never thought you'd agree with Matt Hancock, did you?
It's a new, novel experience for me. But look, I think that on the Euro 2020 happening now as it is in Euro 2021, it's been a great tournament so far. Wales, of course, already through to the
yes, they are, indeed.
The last 16, and of course, I'd love to see the final here carried out, of course, safely.
And Wales to lift the trophy?
Let's hope so.
well, yeah. OK, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for coming in to see us, as I said. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Still to come on the programme for you. You can catch up on any of our interviews here on Sky News today. All you need to do is to go online, just like that. Find us on our mobile app as well. And you can go to the live blog to watch the programme live. And you can catch up on the interviews on my Twitter as well. That's at Kay Burley. Lots to talk about tomorrow. Where do you want to start?
Good morning, Kay. Should we start with social care? Yes. Matt Hancock a bit tetchy about why this meeting that we thought was happening with the Prime Minister and Rishi Sunak yesterday was called off. The bottom line is they promised a plan we have prepared 2 years ago. That's what Boris Johnson said. Of course, the pandemic has intervened. They've now promised it by the end of this year, but I understand the row that's going on in government at the moment is that the Prime Minister is attracted to the idea of a cap, so you pay up to a certain level of your own social care and then the government steps in. But what level to set that cap, especially as they've promised no one will have to sell their home. But of course, that depends whether your home is worth £100,000 or £1 million. Will it be the same for everyone, and is that fair?
Also, he talked to us about double vaccinations and whether that potentially would mean that we could go on holiday or whatever. Very different views on either side of the political spectrum there.
That's right. The government really want to do this. They really want people who've had 2 jabs to be able to get out of the quarantine requirements for the amber list countries, but it's not going to happen immediately. Matt Hancock was a bit cautious. There's talk of August. He wouldn't commit to that because they say that they have to work through all the issues with it, even though dozens of other countries are doing this. The travel industry are crying out for it. The message from Labour is very much one of caution. We know there's going to be an update to the green list later this week, not necessarily something to get excited about, I'm told by sources in government. Last time they took a country off it, but going to be updated on Friday, so potentially more countries there on Monday. But as for the
vaccine passports for double-jabbed people. I think don't get your hopes up quite yet.
OK. Tamara Finai, thanks very much indeed. Apparently costing the economy something like £600 million a day at the moment. Andy Murray, let's talk about him. He's expressed sympathy for young players struggling with the pressure competing at the top level can put on their mental health following Naomi Osaka's decision, as you know, to withdraw from Wimbledon this year. He was speaking to Jackie Beltrao with less than a week until Wimbledon gets underway. She began by asking whether this would be his last time playing the tournament in this broadcast exclusive.
To me, it's not so much necessarily about, I wouldn't say worrying about it being my last one, but it's something that I think about because I've had so many, so many injuries and so many setbacks that you don't really know what's round the corner. So I want to try and approach like each tournament and each match that I play like it could be my last one, so that, I just get the most out of it.
Naomi Osaka has taken time away from the tour because she's struggling with her mental health. Can you sympathise? And did you have any mental health struggles when you were going through all of your injury setbacks?
Unless you've been in that situation, you wouldn't understand, like going from like an 18-year-old playing in front of no people to all of a sudden playing on Wimbledon centre court and being surrounded by press about your personal life and, comments on your personality or how you might look or how you might talk and all of those things. Like when you're 18, you're not prepared for that. 19, 20, you're not ready for that. And it's a big change. So certainly earlier on in my career, I found it harder dealing with all of the sort of the press side of things, I guess, and the attention. Whereas now I have quite a different perspective on things. So, now is fine. But I can certainly understand, when athletes do struggle with it.
I've got to ask you about Scotland. Have you been enjoying the Euros?
I went to the game the other night, and I don't know if you can tell my voice. I'm struggling a bit with my voice. In the evenings we're going down and having food in the lobby and watching some of the matches on the big screens, and it's just nice sort of distraction, really. Hopefully Scotland can put in a good performance against Croatia on Tuesday and get through, but it'll be tough.
We're going to call this a Sport 10 Minutes, should we? Because joining us now is former Formula One world champion, none other than Jenson Button. Hello to you.
How are you?
I am sensational. Thanks for staying up late the other side of the world to speak to us. Just before we get on to why you're joining us today, are you a Wimbledon fan?
Yes, I am. I've been a couple of times, actually, but not for a few years.
Yeah, so you're a big tennis fan. Who do you want to win this championship?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I don't know. For me, I just love the atmosphere of Wimbledon. I think it's just one of those special events. The only problem is it normally coincides with the British Grand Prix, so that's why I've not been able to go as I would like.
Yeah, I thought I'd seen you in the royal box with your mum or somebody in the past. I couldn't quite remember, so I thought I would ask you about it. You're here to talk about previous Grand Prix and the ones that particularly tick your boxes. You picked out the 1971 Italian Grand Prix. Why is that?
Well, actually, that's one of the races that I wasn't around for. That was before my time. It's all about the racing for me. And the reason for talking about this now is, we're all living our lives and we're all thinking about the future, especially with what we've been going through with the pandemic. We're all thinking about the future and tomorrow. And it's nice to take a step back in time and look at what we've achieved, but also the sports that we love and the moments that really stand out of those sports. And, I've picked the 6 races that really make a difference, have made a difference in my life. 3 of them were from my racing in Formula One, but 3 from iconic races of the past.
Yeah, particularly 2009, of course. Now, there was a particular reason why 2009 might have registered in your mind, if you want to remind our viewers.
Yes, that was the year actually I won the World Championship. So, 2009 was a very special year. Every year in Formula One for me was. And, when I watch Formula One now, it's great to see that fight at the front between two absolute greats, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. And Formula One and the motorsport is in a great place at the moment. And I'm really excited about the rest of the season that we have in front of us.
Monaco Grand Prix and the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2009, particularly. I'm guessing the Brazilian Grand Prix because that's towards the end of the season, isn't it? So is that when you won?
Look at you! You know everything. Yes, Monaco was winning, and Monaco is a very special place to win. I also parked in the wrong place in Monaco after I won the race, so I had to run down the start and finish line to see the Prince of Monaco, which is quite embarrassing but exciting at the same time. And Brazil was where I clinched the world title.
Yeah, Honda. Were you driving for Honda in 2009?
No, that was Braun. That was when we were private team.
Yeah.
2009, so a very special year because Braun only raced for 1 year in Formula One and it won the World Championship, so undefeated.
Yeah, you certainly had. Well, it's said that you had the best car on the grid. Do you think you did, or was it all down to your skill?
It was all me. No. Formula One is a team sport, as we see. You know, Lewis Hamilton's not winning without a great car and a great team behind him. So it's about the package, but it's also it's a lot of it's mental. You know, racing drivers are all very talented, but it's a mental game, and if your head isn't in the right space, you don't perform. So that's a big thing with motorsport.
With that in mind, how surprised are you? This is a question from my little boy who's a big F1 fan. He says, how surprised are you that Daniel Ricciardo is struggling against his much less experienced teammate Lando Norris at McLaren?
I am surprised, actually. Not taking anything away from Lando Norris, but I know Daniel very well, and every team he's gone to over the last few years, he's performed pretty much immediately. But he's gone up against our young talent, one of our young talents, British talents, Lando Norris, along with George Russell, who's proven himself over the last couple of years. But Lando is doing such a good job, and Daniel's struggling a little bit, but he will find his feet because he's a very talented driver, and he's a guy that will be fighting for the World Championship in the future, along with Lando Norris and George Russell.
Do you have any thoughts on who might win this season? Is it still Lewis's to lose?
Well, that's the great thing this year. You know, the last few years it's been Mercedes the whole way, but now you have the fight between Mercedes and you have the fight, with Red Bull and two fantastic drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. So I'm really enjoying this year. You know, I'm doing a lot of stuff with Sky Sports F1, and it's been really good because I get to talk about this fantastic fight, and it makes our job really easy because the racing's so good.
How surprised are you that Honda are pulling out, given that they've got a sensational car this year?
Yeah, I think it's, the money that's needed to really fight at the front in Formula One is extremely expensive. They've put a lot of money in over the last few years. I was with Honda back in 2015 and 16, and we were struggling a lot. So they've come a long way. But what a perfect way to leave the sport if they do win the World Championship this year.
If people don't really get Formula One and they think it's just expensive cars going round and round and round a track, which race would you particularly point them towards for them to whet their appetite and think, OK, I'm an F1 fan from now on in?
Well, I think any race from this year, seriously, any race from this year, they have all been fantastic. And, that's not always the case. It's the same with any sport. Not every game or match is fantastic. And that's why the ones that stand out are. But there are many races this year that I've really enjoyed commentating on, being a pundit on and watching. But races from the past, for me, Brazil 2009 was pretty special. Canada 2011, which was a 4-hour race. And I'm not saying it because I won that race, but it was a really exciting race. Even if I didn't win, it would have been a great race.
Yeah, you list 2011 Canadian Grand Prix as one of the craziest races in F1 history. Why was that?
It was the longest race in F1 history. They've actually put a limit on how long a race can be now because there was a red flag in the middle of the race because of bad weather. But I started 7th. I crashed with my teammate Lewis Hamilton. I crashed with Fernando Alonso. I did 5 pit stops. I got a drive-through penalty. I got a puncture, a broken front wing. I was last twice, and I won the race on the last lap. So, yeah, it was kind of crazy.
And where are you at the moment? Why are you not in the UK?
I live in LA, so that's why I'm here. And it's 10 to midnight right now, so 7 minutes to midnight. So if I have red eyes, I have 2 children, 2 very young children, a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. So yes, tomorrow's going to be a tough day.
And do you remember when you probably won it more than once, Singapore Grand Prix, when you won that race, didn't you?
No, I've never won that race.
Oh, no, were you second? Oh, I bought some gloves for my son at auction that were yours, and I said that you'd won. And he's probably listening, and now he knows that you didn't.
Well, let's hope he's not watching. But I finished second 3 times. I finished second, so we can pretend. Just don't tell him.
OK, well, if you're looking for your gloves, they're in my son's bedroom. It's good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Go and get some sleep. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Kay.
Take care. Busted. Quick look at, hopefully he's not watching, quick look at the weather for you now. Here's Naz. Hi, Naz.
Hi, morning. It's looking fine for many places this afternoon, but there will be some rain as well.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. We are going to be seeing mostly fine conditions for many areas this afternoon, but there will be some rain around. In fact, this morning there's rain slowly but surely clearing from central and southern parts of England and Wales. So into this afternoon, these areas will become a bit brighter and drier, but it may stay quite cloudy and damp across the far southeast for most of the day. Then elsewhere, it's a chilly start, but warming up nicely into this afternoon with some good spells of sunshine, but becoming cloudier, wetter and windier across the northwest later.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.